Everything like that is. Really, really.
I always have a fear.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're pretty much good to go at this point. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Good afternoon. My name is Mike Adkinson, Walton County Sheriff. I'm joined by Superintendent Russell Hughes, the Walton County School District, and State's Attorney for the First Judicial Circuit, Ms. Ginger Madden. What I'm going to do is give you an overview of the events yesterday. We have some more details that we certainly are going to share with you. We're going to be as consistent, as transparent as we can be. I think that everybody understands the extremely sensitive nature of this involving children, the age of everyone involved, and just the tremendous amount of public concern about this. So I'm going to answer your questions the best I can. Myself or Ms. Madden or Mr. Hughes are going to be available. Let's run through what we know for sure. Yesterday morning, I think, Mr. Green, we have a timeline available. Is that correct? Yesterday morning, as you'll see, around 7:16 a.m., the suspect in this case arrived, dropped off by his mother as a routine drop-off. There is, just so you understand, at this school, Walton Middle School, is also a school guardian as well as an SRD, but they would not have been back in the school at that point because this is drop-off time. The school is not normally open. They're open for early arrivers and for kids that need to go to have breakfast. Okay, so he arrives, walks straight down a hallway and enters a bathroom. Now, if you'll see the timeline, we're talking about roughly a minute from the time he arrives. He's in that bathroom for about, give or take 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, walks out of the bathroom. When he comes out of the bathroom, he's wearing what's commonly referred to as a balaclava. It is a type of face mask he's put on. As he walks out, he sees the first victim. Now, I want to be clear about something because I think this is a question that comes up quite a bit. There was no relationship between, to our knowledge, by an investigation yet, there's no relationship between the victims and the suspect. Unless something comes up past then, as far as we understand, this is a completely random set of victims. Okay, so be clear about that because I think there's some misunderstanding that maybe had been previous altercation between them. Maybe an investigation comes up and shows us something differently, but at this point, there is absolutely nothing to indicate that at this point. Okay, so he stabs the first victim, that you see about 1948. Now, what happens is the paraprofessional steps out of a classroom, sees the two engaged, says something. You know, she obviously can't see what's going on, doesn't necessarily understand what's going on. At that point, essentially that attack, the suspect leaves the victim on the ground there. The victim gets up and flees. The suspect then runs down the hall. At that time, this is when he attacks the paraprofessional. I think we said yesterday, Ms. Hughes, I think you're correct, that roughly 40 students were in the school total, but in that area, only about 15 to 20 students, maybe a few more, but something like that. So there were other students there. He attacks the paraprofessional, continues running. At some point, he makes what is essentially a circle and randomly attacks victim number 3. That victim collapses there, and the suspect keeps running. The first victim had tried to flee on foot and is being rendered down a hallway by a school staff member who's trying to help that child. The suspect actually walks up to him, does not re-engage them, but flees the scene. Now you see he's exiting school about 7:21, give or take. He's detained around 7:28. These are a little bit of a rough time, but this is about where we're at by members of Phoenix Police Department and Walton County Sheriff's Office. So probably 2 blocks from the school, give or take, still has the balaclava on him. That suspect was brought here to the sheriff's office where a series of interviews were conducted. Obviously, our most important thing was the well-being of the victim and the other children and staff members at the school at that point, because no further threat existed at that point to them. So everything is about life-saving at that point and the mental health and well-being of the children and staff of the Walton County School District. This investigation is going to continue to be ongoing, but a couple of things I want to reiterate to you. From all accounts, this appears to be totally random in regard to victim selection. Okay. I am not going to say the suspect's name at this time, and let me explain to you why, because you're dealing with a 12-year-old that is currently being handled as a juvenile. Decisions on how that's done will ultimately be made based on what the facts of the case are and accordance with the laws of Florida in regard to handling children of this age. So, you know, we gave a lot of thought to that, whether or not to release that, but however, our number one priority is to make sure, A, that we follow the law, B, that the facts dictate when and how, and if further charges are necessary. And we don't want to do anything that's going to hurt a case by saying something we shouldn't say. Does that make sense? And so with that, I will just turn it over real quickly. Mr. Hughes, is there anything that you want to add that I did not address or say from your standpoint?
Sure, thank you. I appreciate it. And as Sheriff stated, it started off as a regular school day for us, where a student was dropped off by his parents in a holding area as they arrived on a daily basis, greeted as principal and assistant principal, no indicators of anything that would occur such as this, as we don't expect on any day in the Walton County School District on any campus. We did have adults who were there, who were on scene and on site doing what they're supposed to do as far as monitoring with students. Some of them acted to help make sure those lives that Sheriff mentioned are taken care for them. Of course, thank you, Sheriff, for the support you have with our SRDs. We also applied some medical attention, as well as some of our students, our teachers and or paraprofessionals, to make sure the well-being of the child was the best could be. It is, as Sheriff said, is absolutely random at this point from our standpoint. No previous things that would give us indication that this was going to occur, when it occurred, by whom it occurred. Would just like to say, Sheriff, today we have about 41%. We opened the school this morning. We believe in having school as normal because we have some 800 students there, and we want to make sure that students have immediate access to counselors. We have additional counselors there, additional law enforcement there to make sure the children are safe. We have about 41% of our students who are there having a great day. We've made sure that teachers had a list of things to make sure we address with students if they had any concerns. Of course, the other part of this, we have professionals, teachers who are there as well. It's been traumatic for everyone, not only our community, our students, our teachers who are there on a daily basis, their place which they live and have their livelihood. We wanted to make sure that we had a support staff of everyone that needed assistance today, and that's going really well. So appreciate that, and thank our community for the support and the guidelines. The other part, people may not know that we never expect things like this to happen at our schools, any of the 20 plus that we have here, or any of our campuses, but we had practiced these kinds of incidents because it's going on around the country or the world. And through that collaboration with our sheriff, our police department, EMS, all of those agencies that came to aid to us in that immediate situation, we want to say thank you. And the confidence that we have in our practicing procedures, certainly we appreciate that. And we thank you that we've been hearing from the victims, one paraprofessional, as the sheriff said, and 2 students. I spoke with their parents as recently as last night, and had some conversations through other departments today on their well-being, and we're grateful and believing that they're going to be all right. So thanks for your prayers, support, and this is a collaboration. This is a partnership. One thing I want to say when it comes to parents play a part in this. They need to know we have these conversations all the time with our students about the expectations We need to make sure that everyone understands the expectation that goes on at home before they arrive at school. That's the appropriate partnership. So thank you, Sheriff. Thank everyone that played a part. God bless you all.
And I'm going to ask Ms. Madden to speak in just a second, but I want to mention something that I did not mention before, and I think it's important from a standpoint of the advanced life-saving care that's available in Walton County. I think this is exactly why we try to set these professional standards, because they were there almost immediately in rendering aid. It makes a difference when you have that kind of care. Both of the two children that were attacked are still in the hospital. They're still in intensive care and underwent procedures yesterday to ensure that save their lives. There will be a lot of speculation about what the background of the suspect is, but I have to tell you, until we're done, we're not going to comment on that, and it doesn't do anyone any good to speculate. What we need to do is be thorough, thoughtful, and professional in the way we engage this. We're not going to make speculation. I'm not going to speak to motivation, because frankly, I don't know a motivation at this point. And I don't think it serves any good for me to speculate on that. And so, Ms. Madden.
Just a few words. First of all, I would like to extend my most heartfelt thoughts and prayers to the families of the victims in this case. Also to the other teachers in the school, the children in the school. An incident like this, a random act of violence like this in our public school system does nothing but just incite terror and fear in everyone that goes to school there, and everyone in the public school system. Having put 3 children through the public school system myself, I have complete confidence in the job that Mr. Hughes is doing. Everyone should recognize what a tremendous job the adults on scene did immediately. This occurred in a period of 45 seconds. And the response from the sheriff's office, from the leadership in the school system, from Mr. Hughes has just been phenomenal. It is my job now, once the case is turned over, when the investigation has been concluded, to see this case through to its appropriate conclusion. Now, with a child this age, a 12-year-old, there are certain limitations that are on the state by the law. Any charges outside of juvenile charges must be determined by a grand jury indictment. So once my office receives the complete investigation, and we're not going to rush the investigation. I know everyone is going to want this to work through the system as rapidly as possible. Once we have an opportunity to look at all of the facts and to look at the law as it applies to an individual of this age, decisions will be made how we will proceed.
We'll do is we'll take some questions, and again, just please be understanding there are certain limitations because of the sensitivity of the circumstances. But any questions?
Yeah, since the suspect is a juvenile, can you just explain a little bit more, that process and how he's charged and where he's being held?
So once, I'll address it to the extent that I can at this time. Once the investigation is concluded and it comes to us, we'll look at it. We've got a couple choices. We can keep it in the juvenile system, which is where it is right now. And again, another reason why we really don't want to disclose names and photos and all, because currently he is in the juvenile justice system. If we choose to present it to a grand jury to see if they would indict him as an adult, that's an option available too. But until we have all the information, those decisions we're not prepared to make that decision yet. But those are different options that are available.
And he is currently being housed in a secure DJJ facility.
You said the suspect walked up to the first victim and the person rendering aid to him. Did he say anything or do anything when he walked up to them?
I don't want to speak to that right now. I will say that unfortunately, this entire incident was largely captured on school video. That video will never be made public. There are victims and it should never see public outside of the courtroom. So I want to be clear about that. So a lot of this we're talking about, we're not speculating. We literally watched this unfold.
Do we know what type of weapon was used? Was kitchen knife or?
Yeah, it was a knife that the suspect brought from his home. Kitchen style knife. Yes.
if you can touch a little bit on this, does the suspect have any past offenses, or has he shown any signals in the past that he may have done, was gonna do something like this?
So we're in the process of doing an investigation, and I just don't want to say that there was nothing in the past, there was something, we just need to look at this and be very thorough. The suspect was suspended, about a month ago, but nothing related to anything like this. We need to finish looking at all the records before we make that kind of statement.
Is there any family history? Because Superintendent, I noticed you mentioned, it all starts with what the student is bringing from home into their schools. So I guess, is there any play for the student specifically that you could touch on?
In play.
Or just kind of if any of his at-home or family history
I think
could be
Sheriff,
involved?
when he stated what the student brought to school, that was my, input. He brought this item from home, which is, concerning. That's how the item got to school, and concealed it.
How, how long did you interview the suspect for?
Well, the suspect's still in our custody, right? And there's limitations to how long you can interview a juvenile, and things that quite frankly make practical sense when you're doing that. So I don't want to disclose the exact amount of time, but we're not talking about a period of hours. That's not how this works. So he is a child and we have to deal with it a certain way. So
I do have a question.
I'm sorry, I have to, they gotta go here.
Yes, are there any plans to implement any safety measures like metal detectors or clear backpacks in the future?
So that'll ultimately be a decision that we talk with the superintendent for him to decide, and working with our school safety officer. But I need to be very realistic with everybody here. And, my children went to public schools here, and I'm very proud of that, very proud of the education they got. We're gonna do everything we can, and we always work very closely with the superintendent, school safety about doing what we can. But it's pragmatically impossible to eliminate every risk every day for somebody that wants to do harm. Doesn't mean you can't do better. We want to try and do as best we can, but I don't think we'll ever be in a situation where we can stop and search every child every day. So there is a balance. And I think once you see, listen, every house is full of steak knives or kitchen knives and things of that nature. We have to figure out what the balance between safety and children learning in an environment that makes sense. And I don't know that answer. I think that's something we'll sit down and consider. Mr. Hughes, I'll say that correctly.
Absolutely. We will consider all those things and have conversations with sheriff, our safety specialists, and try to stay on top of those kinds of measures. If we're going to add any additional measures, we'll certainly let our community know if appropriate and not going to jeopardize the safety of other students.
And I say that pragmatically, and I don't want to be flippant, but the reason I say that is because this same individual could have just got out of the right area, never entered the school. So he wouldn't even have to walk through a metal detector. That's the challenge, is making a institution as safe as you can, but still make it conducive for a child for learning. So it's a tough call.
And I have a question for the superintendent. I know you touched on, them going back to school today, but can you explain a little further why you guys made this decision of reopening the school, knowing what happened yesterday in the trauma?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Research shows us that it is important and paramount for us to get back to normalcy as quickly as possible. This is the life and experience of children for the last 120 plus days, 40 something days now. Some of those students don't have food unless they come to our school. Where they're going, we didn't want 500 or 800 students sitting at home all day alone. Think about what happened. Those who are dealing with challenges need someone to talk to. Some of our parents have to work. I made the decision that we will get back into schools where I know they're going to be fed. I know adults can handle their situation, where I know we'll have extra support, extra protection, and not leave a child or 11 and 12 years old at home all day trying to figure out what they're really thinking. How will they handle this? We have children that are involved in extracurricular activities. The outlet's going to be softball practice or some kind parents, some are trying to get to work. And we're assured that we can provide the place and space they needed, and environment and the support. So I made that decision on my own, and it was tough not only about the children, but again, the adults. But my priority is the children, the safety of them, their mental state. We talk about the whole child when it comes to educating them. So we wanted them in a learning environment. Now, it's tough to learn geometry having heard and felt all the things they had to feel yesterday. But at least we had adults there who could really support them through the learning and get back to normalcy so they would have some time away from the tragedy that happened yesterday. And the sheriff mentioned this, and it's very important to know only about 40 children actually witnessed this incident. So the majority of students didn't witness it. They heard about it or had a part of it when we had to reunify them at a different location. So the residual may be emotions of them having to get on the bus, not knowing what was going on, not knowing what's happening. So all they had was what another student may have shared with them. I made the decision to make sure children were back into, and I'll say it into my care of Walton County School District, of teachers, staff, law enforcement, support staff that could provide everything a child would need under these circumstances at this time.
And while I have you up there, what resources are being provided to the students right now to help get back to that sense of normal and to hopefully see growth from the current around 40% of return from today?
Well, I think we provided again, those resources, some stability, some questions they may have had that parents didn't know because we cannot disclose all of the details. The teachers can say, hey, this has happened. We're going to be all right. We're family. We're tribe at Walton Middle School, and we're going to take care of each other. We're all going through this. So we didn't leave students on their own to kind of process these kinds of things, talk about next steps. We had professionals who were there along with them to help support and walk through our next steps.
And what are some of the safety measures that not only Walton Middle, but other schools in the county already have in place to help prevent incidents like this one?
We have a lot of safety measures. Many of those I will not disclose because it informs NR powers. I think the biggest thing people may not know, and an incident like this may not come out, we talk to children about humanity, about life, respect, and the expectation of protecting yourself and those you're connected to. And in those conversations, we talk about why this is so offensive, this is so detrimental, this is so opposite of what humanity is all about. And we do that very often. And so when we talk about those kinds of things, and I've been superintendent for 9 years, go to school 180 days. It's the first time we've had to deal with this. I don't ever want to deal with it. I would hope at the end of my 10-year, it'd be 0 times. But those kinds of conversations have to happen often for the well-being of children and humanity. So we're teaching life, not just math, geometry, English, those.
Do you anticipate a time when you might be releasing the name of the suspect at some point, additional information?
I just think Ms. Madden touched on that. I think, while we're pending this investigation, until such time as a decision is made, whether or not it's presented to a grand jury, that obviously would fundamentally change things. And if that was done, then we'd certainly do it at that point. Until then, we just need to make sure that we comply with laws. We don't do anything that makes a prosecution difficult. We need to make sure the prosecution is successful. We owe that to the victims. We owe that to the staff, the people who are there. So our number one job is to do it right. And, when it becomes incumbent upon us to release it, that it makes sense, we will absolutely do that. But, if you want to blame somebody, blame me in regard to part of that. I just did not think it's appropriate to do anything that would potentially hamper the ability of the state to carry this out in a manner that makes sense for it.
And you gave an update on the 2 children who are in the hospital. Can you give us a little more on that and how the paraprofessional is doing as
I
well?
believe the paraprofessional
Is at home.
is that home. Okay.
As of yesterday.
And I want to be careful because we don't want people's health in regard to the 2 victims, but they are still in the hospital with intensive care.
And for parents who may be watching and are wondering, how will you make sure that this doesn't happen again in Walton County Schools?
Wow, I tell you, that's I would have told you that I've been in this business long enough to know that there are always individuals who are going to seek to do harm. As far as the systems in place, the system worked as well as it possibly could. With all due respect, we didn't prevent it, absolutely, but we prevent a whole lot. And then I think the way the relationship between the school district, sheriff's office, in regard to providing safety, it's our priority. We have very constant meetings with the school district, and the response was very, very quick. But I can never guarantee you, nor should anybody ever guarantee you, there'll never be violence and there'll never be someone who takes actions like this. It becomes very difficult. And we've had a pretty good success record. God willing, I would love to finish out, it's my 33rd year. I'd love to finish out, never have done this, but this is the reality. And what we're going to try and do is we'll look for ways to be better, as I said earlier. But I'm not going to lie to you, and no one should ever tell you that they can prevent any and all attacks at all time. That's just not the world. Who else?
I just want to make one comment. You step out of my wheelhouse, which I shouldn't do. I'm no mental health expert. I deal with facts and law. But I support Mr. Hughes' decision to bring the children back to school. I think one of the most important things, again, I'm no mental health expert, but I think one of the most important things that parents and the community, we need to show these children that we have confidence in school safety, that we have confidence in our school system, and getting back to business, providing the most safe environment that we can possibly provide for children to learn and for teachers to teach. But I think it's incumbent on us as adults, as parents, as a community, to demonstrate that through our thoughts and actions, and showing our confidence in the system. I think the children are going to recover most rapidly and most fully. They'll follow the lead of the adults they're surrounded by.
And I thought Mr. Hughes gave a statement last night that I think was put out on your social media as well too, that is worth parents and citizens to listen to, and just speaks to the heart of both the man and the attitude of the way the Walton Middle School District does business. This trauma response about building resiliency is about getting these kids back to, as he said, a sense of normalcy. And I would 100% support the decision to make that. There's no other questions. We're going to conclude this. As more information becomes available, we'll certainly make that available to you. Thank you.